All right, here we are. I can't believe it. It is literally almost the middle of August already. We are, what, 12 days away from the beginning of Explore. So if you have not yet already, get out and register for Explore. A lot of good stuff going on there. A lot of people going to be there. A lot of famous people going to be there. Unfortunately, Belu, I was sad to see you're not going to make it this year.
I know. Yeah, I do have an important PSA to make.
All right.
Yeah, because folks, you may notice that it looks like someone tried to kill me. It wasn't someone, but it was something. So I spent last week in the hospital because I swallowed a metal bristle from a grill brush. So main reason I'm saying this is because please throw away your grill brushes. It is a dumb way to end up in the hospital. But I was coming out from surgery and I would tell my medical team, like, guys, I need to make it to this webinar. People are expecting me. So yeah, I'm glad they made it happen. But yeah, hopefully that caught your attention for this very important topic we're going to be covering today.
Yeah, and we do. It is an important topic, man. We're cyber warfare reality check. If that isn't ominous, that's the deal. So, yeah, we can actually get rolling. Ton of folks in the audience, and just as a reminder to everybody in the audience, these sessions are recorded. They're posted up to our site, and on that page, you can not only see what's coming up with respect to the webinars that are due in the future, but you can also see recordings on all of the sessions that have happened in the past. So I see a couple of messages of folks that have friends that can't make it today. No worries, there will be a recording, and you all can get a copy of that as well as access to the rest of our library. So with that, let's not wait any further. Let's get rocking and rolling here.
Awesome. Great that this is going to be recorded, right? So more people are going to hear and throw away their grill brushes. Okay, so let's dive right in. My name is Belu. I'm in charge of product marketing for our cyber resilience platform portfolio for VCF. And I am here with you guys today to share a few things that I think are going to be really useful for you as you start navigating this ever-evolving threat landscape that we are currently presented with. So we're going to kick it off by kind of understanding how ransomware operates in the first place. And we'll also try to understand, right, cyber attacks have been around for a long time, right? But why are organizations still struggling with this? Why has this problem not been properly addressed? We're going to talk a little bit about how we approach cyber recovery, right, as a last line of defense and a critical component of cyber resilience. I'm going to walk you through the product so you can see how we achieve this, right? How we enable our customers to confidently and securely restore operations in the event that they get hit with minimum data loss and in the shortest period of time. And then finally, we're going to talk about this platform level value for VCF, right, when it comes to cyber resilience, and how our approach really brings this holistic visibility and integrated functionality to enable successful outcomes for cyber resilience. So without further ado, let's dive in. So what you see here is kind of, how ransomware operates, right? So you will have this initial malicious access, right? It can be a phishing email. It can be a bunch of things, right? A very tricky one that is actually becoming increasingly common is stolen credentials. And the reason why this is a very, dangerous type of malicious access is because if attackers are actually coming in with these legitimate protocols, right, with these approved credentials, there is no security tool that's actually going to detect their entry to your systems until it's probably too late. So the way they come in is through all of these different mechanisms, and they take control of one server. But what they start doing after is they start moving laterally, leveraging all the network connections, so the east-west traffic between VMs, and spreading across the infrastructure, looking for these mission-critical workloads to therefore encrypt right? So this is kind of called a dwell time, right? The amount of time a ransomware attack remains in your environment and the time it takes to spread before it actually encrypts data and locks down your systems to demand a ransom. So how do we fight back with this, right? And here there's a very common misconception, right? People think that cyber resilience is security, right? And don't get me wrong, security is a critical component of cyber resilience, but usually folks fail to identify or are simply unaware that end-to-end cyber resilience is composed of additional things that are equally important, right? And as you can see from the definition of cyber resilience here, what we want to achieve here is our ability to stop attacks before they come in, our ability to detect them if they do, minimize the damage, and be able to restore operations probably when, not if, we are faced with a situation like that. So I'll talk a little bit more in my next few slides about why this continues to be a problem, right? But what you see here is the NIST framework, right? Which essentially shows us all the different stages that we should be considering in order to be able to enforce this true end-to-end cyber resilience. And a common challenge that we see here, right, is that there is a lot of kind of lack of clarity in terms of who is responsible for what, right? And cyber resilience does require this cross-functional collaboration between different parts of IT, right? Your security team, your infrastructure team, your networking team probably plays a role as well. So all of these things need to come together, and ultimately something that organizations struggle with is that they just don't have tools to enable them to properly and swiftly collaborate to ultimately protect and essentially give their organization the cyber resilience that they need to operate in compliance as well. So why is this so hard, right? You know, ransomware, I think the first ransomware attack was what, 1989? And yeah, like, you know, why haven't we figured this out yet, right? We have all these technologies, all of these mature tools that, you know, are around. We have backups, we have DR, all of these things. So there's a few reasons why cyber recovery continues to be such a daunting problem. So the first one is this misconception, right, that DR and cyber recovery are the same thing. And even if DR is foundational to cyber recovery requires a few additional layers of capabilities to be able to be executed, right? And the reason for that is that unlike DR, your latest snapshot, your latest backup in cyber recovery is going to be infected and or encrypted. So you can't just do the recover from my latest snapshot. You need to roll back in time. You also need to make sure that your restore points are clean and uninfected before you restore them. Otherwise, you could be reinfecting your production environment. So all of these things require additional tools, one of which is what we call an isolated clean room, right? This quarantined environment that needs to have VM network isolation precisely because we are looking to prevent the spread of malware within that environment, because we could then reinfect production, right? And an important thing to highlight here, you see embedded validation. This validation is critically important, and this is something that, you know, regardless of what your decision is after this webinar, this is something you should be asking your vendor of choice today. So cyber attacks have evolved since roughly 2017 to become primarily fileless in nature. So what does this mean, right? Normally, you know, back in the day, we would just, you know, scan a static backup with a signature-based tool, identify the malicious file, delete it, move on. The issue is that attacks today don't leave a malicious file behind, right? They're going to work in memory They're going to leverage all of these legitimate tools and protocols spread laterally. So ultimately, if you run a signature scan on an infected workload that has a fileless malware strain, it's going to come back clean. So the only way in which we are able to contain, detect, cleanse modern malware or fileless malware from our recovery points is by powering on the workload in this critical isolated clean room and running next-gen antivirus, or what we call behavioral analysis, where essentially we understand how the data within the workload behaves over time to identify these suspicious behaviors of data that could indicate the presence of malicious activity. Another common misconception, right, is that you have immutable air gap backups and that's going to be enough to recover. As you can tell from like my last challenge in the first circle, this is no longer true. Right, precisely because of all these additional layers of capabilities that you need. And what you see in the bottom of the second circle, this AI/ML powered validation, essentially is this behavioral analysis, right? How we update our models to be able to detect this malicious behavior, given that cyber attacks are evolving constantly. Our development in terms of like how we detect them, how we contain them, needs to be ever evolving as well. So you can imagine, right? All of these separate components, you have your EDR, you have your network isolation, the recovery infra, the replication orchestration, and the list goes on. Bringing together all of these things, and also keeping in mind that you still need to do DR potentially at some point for, a different situation, is really hard, right? You're going to have to be stitching together multiple different components, different vendors. Lifecycle management is a huge pain. And ultimately, bringing together these critical parts of cyber resilience, right, which do span across how you secure your infrastructure, how you enforce lateral security with things such as a distributed firewall, and how you ultimately consolidate all the operations to be able to recover if you are hit. This is incredibly hard. So, and finally, something like practice makes perfect. And an awful truth today is that most solutions out there make it incredibly disruptive for folks to test their recovery plans. And an important reason for that is that they require a data rehydration. And this ultimately, I've heard people tell me that it takes weeks to test the recovery plans, is while what ends up happening is that people just don't test and come to find that there's gaps in the way they are protecting their data when it is too little, too late. So now Anders, if you can please pull the poll options. I want to hear from you guys. So I'd love to kind of learn, are any of these challenges resonating with you? Is this something that your organization is currently experiencing? So yeah, and if it is a different challenge, we'd love to know what it is. So yeah, feel free to input your answers. I am not entirely sure how we are able to see the results, and if we can do
I will share. I'll share the results and go through them verbally at the end here. So
cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
We'll give folks a few seconds to get their titles in. I'll tell you what, one of them is head and shoulders above everything else right now.
Oh, really?
Yes, the answers may surprise you, as the internet says.
Huh. Okay, I'm curious.
Yeah, it's a good one. A lot of folks ringing in. We're about 40% participated. All right, let's keep it up.
Solid.
Give it another 10 seconds here. 7, 6, 48. Can we get 50% participation? 50% participation.
Nice.
All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, last chance. Get them in. Oh, it's still going. Yeah, you know what?
Oh,
I can't stop it. This is amazing. All right. No, now I can stop. All right, here we go.
okay.
So we're going to share these results here. Take a look at what we got going on.
Oh,
Yeah, manually
wow.
integrate multiple products, 11%. Don't test my recovery plans, 11%. Building, securing, and managing, 11%. All of the above, 59%.
This
Other.
is wild, folks.
Yeah.
And I think if you are struggling with all of these things, I think you've come to the right place, because hopefully by the end of this webinar, you at the very least are going to be equipped with tools that are going to help you ask the right questions. Because ultimately, we really want you to be able to secure the way you operate, right? So that is critically important, and frankly, the main objective that we want to achieve today. So moving on. So what you have here, right? And this is kind of a graphic representation of what I was just talking about, right? You have your secure backups, right? You've replicated your backups, they're immutable, they're air gapped, all of that goodness. The issue is that if you are thinking about cyber recovery, as you are painfully aware, it seems, you need all of these additional things, right? All of these additional steps, these layers to be able to recover. And that is probably, if not the largest, one of the top challenges. So managing all of these components is cumbersome, difficult. It leaves gaps that expose you to increased damage. And ultimately, you end up having to have all of these solutions together, right? So what we are doing, right, because we know how big of a challenge this is today, and because we want to enable our customers to derive platform level value from the VMware Cloud Foundation offering, we have brought all of these together as part of VMware Live Recovery, right? So we are unifying cyber and disaster recovery into VMware Cloud Foundation. So a little more on that coming up, but another poll, I'd love for you folks to share a little bit. How many solutions are you using today for cyber and disaster recovery? I am curious to see this.
All righty. Here comes poll number 2. Let's see if we can beat 54% participation this time. That's amazing. Normally we get like 6 people that answer, but people are engaged today. I tell you what.
I'm flattered. I'm gonna lead with the bristle story from now on.
For sure. That's good. You may have saved some lives today, and they're grateful.
I know that was the idea, right?
Super good.
It was, yeah. I'm just really trying to save people from this. No one should ever have to experience this. I
Right.
don't know why these brushes are legal.
And it's like one of those urban legends things. My brother told me this story. He's a with a police officer in California. He's like, you would be amazed how much this happens. I'm like, no way, that never happens. Now I can say confidently firsthand, I know somebody who's been impacted.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the wild thing, it was kind of like a Dr. House level case, because doctors were like, we've seen people swallow bristles, but we've never seen a disappearing bristle. And to this
Yikes.
day, the bristle has not been found after 3 surgeries, let me tell you. So yeah.
If it ends up in your kitchen drawer, we'll know what happened.
Well, the best hypothesis I got was that it fell into the room of the OR during one of the surgeries while they were irrigating the sky.
That
So,
builds confidence. We are at 58% here, so I'm going to go ahead and end this poll. Boy, everybody they beat their last numbers with participation here. Let's look at these
fire. Okay.
Righty. 1 to 2 seems to be the biggie.
Oh.
6 or more is a little traumatizing to me right now. But yeah.
It is a little traumatizing. So I guess, a follow-up question that I would invite you to think about, right? It is not included in our polls today, but if you are using maybe none or 1 to 2, maybe you have everything you need, right? But really make sure that you are combining these critical components across behavioral analysis, the network isolation, the isolated clean room, the orchestration, right? So really make sure that you are covering all bases. And if you are, and you are only deploying one or two solutions, hopefully you are a VMware Live Recovery customer. But yeah, think about whether what you have is enough, and whether there's an opportunity for you to consolidate the way you operate to ultimately minimize this big strain that you're putting into your operations, right? The way your IT teams are able to function. I'll share a little data point here. So we ran a survey with Forrester and analyst firm, right, some time ago, and essentially asked 200 different organizations of all sizes across all different segments, how many solutions are you using? And we were surprised to find that people went and actually, counted the amount of solutions, and like 75% of respondents said they were using like up to 15 different solutions. Isn't that wild? I was like, how do you guys do this? How many people do you have working on this? So yeah, definitely a pain point that we want to solve. So I'm going to walk you guys through how we are addressing these challenges with VMware Live Recovery, or VLR, as you're going to see people and hear people talking about it. So as I mentioned, right, VMware Live Recovery is designed to offer this unified cyber and disaster recovery for VMware Cloud Foundation environments across VCF sites on premises and in the cloud. So it is an advanced service to VCF. And essentially, we provide customers the flexibility to recover either from a power outage, a traditional disaster scenario, or from an actual cyber recovery event, with two key options, right? They can either leverage an existing VCF on-prem site, right? They can, this is a dual purpose site, right? So it's not like they don't have to have this idle and maintain it and whatever while they're not using it. This is actually something that's really beneficial, especially because a lot of people are painfully aware that, holding on to these recovery sites, when you're not using them all the time, is just expensive, inefficient, and yeah, it's just a big pain. So on the flip side, right, what you see is VLR Cloud. Like I'm going to walk you through how this works in a second, but essentially what we're doing here is we are giving customers this flexibility in case they do need to access, or they would benefit from this elasticity of cloud infrastructure, right? Where you can scale up or down. An important thing to highlight here is that your cloud isolated clean room can be provisioned in a just-in-time fashion, right? You can do this directly from the product UI. It has all of these embedded capabilities, right? So you don't need to manually integrate the network isolation. You don't need to bring in your EDR solution. You don't need to navigate the process of selecting recovery points, which is incredibly painful because how do you know where to start? You're able to iterate quickly. So I'm getting ahead of myself, but really, really cool things that we have designed here for you guys to hopefully give you this flexibility, right, to protect your VCF workloads to your topology of choice. So, okay, the fun part now, right, getting into the technical details that I know many of you are very excited to hear about. So I'm going to walk you through how a cyber recovery exercise works, right? So in the event, so let's start with like the basic DR, right? So you have your VCF production site, and you are going to deploy this VLR appliance. And essentially, this VLR appliance is a virtual appliance, lightweight, easy to install, and it is going to enable you to replicate snapshots of your production workloads. And these are going to be stored in a cloud file system, right? This is part of VLR. An important thing to highlight here is that the box that you see in the middle has separate credentials from production, right? So this very typical strategy that attackers have where they just, steal the credentials, they go in, and then they start tampering with your backups, trying to delete them or, kind of cause trouble there. This is, very unlikely to happen precisely because of this additional barrier that we are bringing as part of the solution, right? So these backups are, of course, going to be, immutable, air-gapped. We've established that as table stakes, but we are, of course, baking in that into the product. So in a disaster recovery, this is pretty straightforward, right? This cloud isolated clean room that you see on the side, you can either provision that just in time, or if you have certain RTO sensitivities, you can also have what we call a pilot light, right? So as little as 2 hosts, and then you can just instantly scale that when you have to do a test, when you have to actually fail over. So this is kind of really cool if you want to kind of avoid that second site. And also if you want to avoid, having to manually kind of set up, secure, manage all of the components of an isolated clean room. And of course, the cost. So that is DR. So let's look at cyber recovery. So let's say you get hit with a ransomware attack, right? So you have your immutable air-gap snapshots. So we're going to go through a couple of steps, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I do want to dive deeper into each of these components when I walk you through the workflow, right? So the actual product. So what we've done here is we have integrated EDR, right? So we have a signature scan, we have a vulnerability scan, we have behavioral analysis, this very critical part to identify these modern strains of malware. This is also a critical question you should be asking your vendors, right? Do you have behavioral analysis? And is this embedded into the product? Do I need to do it myself? And are you only providing signature-based scans? Because for most solutions, if you look under the hood, you will come to find that they claim they have, ransomware detection and they can help cleanse your VMs. But ultimately, you'll come to find that these are signature-based scans, which, as we've established, are insufficient. Another thing to look out for here is the isolated clean room. Setting this up when the stress is high is non-trivial, guys. So, and you'll come to see things such as some vendors saying like, oh, we guarantee that we're going to ship the hardware to you if you get hit with ransomware within 72 hours. And it's like, what? You're going to have to be there for 3 days waiting for servers to get delivered and then have to stand up this entire environment on your own. So the isolated clean room, how it is provisioned, and what role your vendor plays when it comes to, setting this up is very important. So going back to this, integrated EDR, right? So we're going to do is we are going to run a feature called instant power on, right? But to select the recovered or the VM candidates or workload candidates, we're going to have a feature called guided restore point selection. More on that in a minute, right? So you select your restore points with this feature, you power them on with instant power on in the isolated clean room. So you're not going to need to do any data rehydration, any VM format conversions, right? So this is instant, right? This is very quick. So you won't need to worry about that additional time, that cumbersome process of having to rehydrate your data when you're bringing workloads into the clean room. What we're going to do there, once the workloads are powered on, we're going to run this behavioral analysis, right? Cover all bases, your signature scan, behavioral analysis, vulnerability analysis, and we're going to get this visibility into what is actually going on to ultimately be able to determine if these workloads are clean or not. And as part of this isolated clean room, something that's really cool is that we have embedded this VM network isolation, right? So to prevent this lateral movement, right? So if you're powering on an infected workload in the clean room, malware could spread. So you are able to customize the way your VMs talk to each other. You can completely isolate them. You can open it up to the security team if you need to run any forensics. So custom or pre-configured isolation levels that can be set up at the push of a button. So finally, once you have identified these clean workloads, you are going to proceed to restore them back to production. And something that's important here is that all of this is included as part of an end-to-end automated workflow. This is not just for recovery. This is also for testing. So a very important thing to highlight here. And in terms of scale, right? We are not doing this on a per VM basis. We are doing this in bulks of VM precisely because we want you to be able to recover quickly and not have to go one by one, which for large environments is just daunting, impossible. So what makes us special, right? This is kind of an overview of which kind of should spark the questions that you should be asking your vendors, right? And if you have others for us, please bring them up, right? Because we want to be able to design a product that works for you, and we really want to solve all these problems for you. So the first one should come as no surprise, right? This isolated clean room, not having to set it up, secure it, manage it. The push button network isolation, which is really cool and saves you a ton of time. The built-in EDR, right? You don't need to pay extra for this. You don't need a separate license. You don't need to manually bring it into your isolated clean room. It is all done for you, right? When we power on workloads in the clean room, an EDR sensor is automatically installed into each VM. So there is no manual intervention required on your end to do this. This workflow automation, right? All of these steps, like going one by one. Sometimes people are not really sure, collaborating, right? Infrastructure security teams, like I was bringing up in a prior slide, automating this process streamlines the way you operate and ultimately drives more secure recovery. So this is not just about, the fancy automation words. This is a critical part that solves a big challenge that, as we've seen in the poll, really comes up. And then finally, right, your ability to quickly test, your ability to quickly iterate on these recovered workloads, because we know that, especially in a cyber recovery scenario, the first snapshot that you pick may actually be infected, right? So you may need to go back and select another one. And if you have to iterate on this process, right, you need to make it quickly, you need to make it swift. So that is also something that we've kept in mind. So this, at the risk of being repetitive, right, I'm just going to build this out, right? So this is essentially the things that we've kept in mind as we have designed VMware Live Recovery, right? It brings together the power of these kind of established VMware data protection solutions, right? To be able to simplify the way you operate and ultimately drive successful outcomes for cyber recovery and cyber resilience as a whole. Okay, now we're going to walk through the actual workflow. So what you see here on the screen, sorry if it's a little small, but hopefully you guys can see this, is the dashboard, right, for cloud, for recovery to a cloud isolated clean room. Right, so you can see here kind of your recovery topology, right, your production sites, where your snapshots are being stored. This is kind of the cloud file system, the orchestrator, what was in the middle of that arc diagram that I showed earlier, and then your recovery isolated clean room or isolated recovery environment, which is essentially a cloud SPDC. So you can also visualize, right, what your protected estate looks like. The capacity, the number of VMs, how they are baked into different protection groups, and where they reside, right? Are your protected sites in the cloud? Because you can protect cloud sites too, or are they on-prem? So this is where the workflow starts, right? We're going to go through a recovery exercise, but you can also do a test, right? So you're going to click on ransomware recovery, right? And the first thing you're going to see, right, if you don't have this Pilot Lite clean room set up yet, is that you're going to be able to set up this recovery SDDC that we were talking about. So you just click there. It's pretty straightforward, right? So this is where the workflow starts, right? Your clean room is provisioned. You just click there and it's, done for you. You don't need to spend hours figuring this out, or potentially days. This is how the workflow looks like, right? So you're going to start the process, right? So the first thing you're going to do, right, you need to select these recovery point candidates, right? So you click on Start VM in Recovery SDDC. And what VM do you select? What snapshot do you select? So what you see here on the screen is this feature that I was mentioning, which is guided restore point selection, where what we are showing you here is at the top, you see this snapshot timeline, right? So maybe your retention periods kind of, you hold on to snapshots, monthly and then weekly and then daily and then hourly, and it's really up to you, and it also really depends on the sensitivity of the workloads that you are protecting. So so you see the snapshot timeline here, right? But then you see all of these additional metrics below. And what does this mean, right? So how do we interpret these metrics? So the change rate, right? Unexplained changes in your VMDKs could actually indicate the presence of malicious activity. Entropy, right? This is an important one. Entropy is a measure of compressibility of the data. So if your entropy is high, encrypted data tends to be harder to compress given its randomized nature. So a spike in entropy could indicate the moment where encryption started happening. And then other things that we have included as these advanced metrics that will also give you these additional layers of visibility are the creation, modification of files, and then the ransomware extension based on all these known signatures, and also potentially irregular extensions. So full visibility into this. And the idea here is that you are going to be able to get a sense, right? And which, when the attack started encrypting things, and be able to select a restore point that is prior to that, right? And here's where the collaboration between your security and infra teams is going to be important, and is going to be actually very much facilitated, because as you go through the workflow, you are going to be able to badge these recovery points and actually tell, the infra team can tell the security team, hey, this snapshot is infected, so we have to roll back even further. So forensics and recovery can actually collaborate to ultimately secure the infrastructure faster and enable a quick recovery. So we select a restore point, right? Using all of those metrics that we just looked at. We're going to start this VM in the isolated clean room. And essentially this is the instant power on that we were talking about, right? So we're gonna power this on, and what you're gonna see next, right, is how this EDR sensor gets automatically installed into each VM that you're powering on in the clean room. Selected a recovery point candidate, we power on in the isolated clean room, and we are running this behavioral analysis, the vulnerability analysis, the malware signature scan, all of these things, right? We're making sure applications are properly patched. We are scanning for malicious files, because who knows, maybe you were hit by amateur cyber attackers. And we are also doing this very behavioral analysis. So what we recommend here is 8 hours, right? But ultimately, this is going to be up to you, depending on your risk tolerance as well as your downtime tolerance, which of course is going to be very much influenced by the criticality of the workloads that you are looking to recover. Towards the bottom of the screen, you see the button that says change network isolation. So this is the push button network isolation that we see, that it's integrated into the isolated clean room. And then, you're going to get this visibility into the threats, what is going on. This is going to help you identify and clean these malware strains from your restore points. And towards the bottom of the snapshot, what you see is try different snapshot, right? So you're going to be able to iterate. Let's say, this one looks like it's not really good, right? You have critical vulnerabilities, you have a score of 5 for threat severity. So yeah, not great. This is essentially what it looks like when you're looking to change the network isolation of the VMs that you are recovering. And then you're just going to power it off and stage once you have identified these clean restore points. So voila, at the end, you have recovered your data back to production and you are set to go. So before I close out, I wanted to kind of quickly recap on what this means as we think about the VCF platform cyber resilience value proposition, right? So this slide is repeated, but the important thing here is that we are mapping our portfolio onto this criticalness framework that I was talking about. So the hardened infrastructure, right? vDefend that comes in for this distributed lateral security that is also critically important, right? Because 80% of traffic happens east-west. So very important part. And then live recovery, which has been the focus of today's session. So, the money slide here, right? So what we're doing here, right, is we are bringing these components together for you. So VCF is hardened out of the box, right? So all of these mechanisms that are designed to prevent bad actors from coming in the first place, you don't have to go in and do them manually, right? The data encryption, the identity federation, the compliance monitoring, the remediation, all of these things are embedded into the way the VCF platform operates. Next, you have the vDefend component, right? All of these, the distributed lateral security that comes through a distributed firewall, the advanced threat prevention. The firewall has this micro-segmentation that is critical. And for advanced threat prevention, we have, the signature behavior-based detection of malicious behavior across network traffic with IDS, IPS. You can actually group threat campaigns based on similar indicators of compromise with network traffic analysis and NDR. You can sandbox, right? You can do malware sandbox to identify zero-day threats, which are critically important. If you haven't seen the Robert De Niro series on Netflix, I highly recommend. And yeah, you have all this goodness baked in, right? We have also included really cool things such as a Gen AI assistant into vDefend. This is particularly designed to simplify the way SOC admins triage alerts and enables them to kind of implement all of these remediation measures at scale. So more on that. You should check that out at Explore. It is coming up in a very short amount of time. And then finally, cyber recovery, near and dear to my heart, and something I can clearly talk about for a really long time. So really hope you folks found this useful. Would love your feedback if there's something you would like to see in upcoming sessions. And yeah, thank you all so much for your time.